खूप मोठं होतं. त्याचं इन्व्हिटेशन अँड श्वेता बारसकर यांनी तयार केले. या दोघांचाही मी आपल्या क्लब तर्फे हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करतो. तसेच येत्या रविवारी 16 जुलै सकाळी 11 वाजता आपण शिक्षकांसाठी ऑनलाईन ट्रेनिंग एक वेबिनार घेणार आहोत. तसेच दुपारी 4 वाजता जॅपनीज आणि स्पॅनिश या 2 लँग्वेज तसेच त्यांच्या आत्ताच्या अभ्यासक्रमामध्ये असलेले महत्व यासाठी आपल्या सहवास क्लब तर्फे आपण त्याचा वेबिनार आयोजित करत आहोत. त्याच्या डिटेल्स आपल्या ग्रुपवरती तसेच डिस्ट्रिक्ट ग्रुपवरती मी पाठवले आहेत आणि पुन्हा पाठवेन. यामध्ये आपण तसे आपले मित्र परिवार या सर्वांना सहभागी होण्यासाठी हे इन्व्हिटेशन सर्वांपर्यंत पोहोचवावं अशी मी विनंती करतो. आणि हा प्रोग्राम सगळ्यांसाठी ओपन टू ऑल आहे. तसेच रविवारी संध्याकाळी 6 वाजता मूड ऑफ मान्सून असा फेसबुक लाईव्ह रोटरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट 313 तर्फे आयोजित केलेला आहे. हा सुद्धा ओपन टू ऑल आहे. आपण सर्वांनी याचा लाभ घ्यावा.
31 जुलैला आपला कथाकथनचा कार्यक्रम आपल्या क्लबमध्ये होणार आहे. क्लबमध्ये म्हणजे आपण झूमवरतीच भेटणार आहोत. ताईसाठी आपण पुढच्या शुक्रवारी त्याच्यासाठी पण आपण उपस्थित राहायचंय. थोडक्यात सेक्रेटरी अनाउन्समेंट आपण दरवेळेला वाचतोच. रोटरीच्या 4 वे टेस्ट मी रिपीट करेन. whenever we are as we are Rotarians and in Rotary and outside also, we should follow this 4-way test in our life. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So let us help. This 4-way test will help and enrich our life. Thank you. मागच्या आठवड्यातले बर्थ डेट्स 17 जुलै रोटरियन प्रकाश पटवर्धन, 19 जुलै अनेट ऋग्वेद आपटे आणि 20 जुलै अनेट रेयांश भिडे. सर्वांचे वाढदिवसाबद्दल हार्दिक अभिनंदन. अचिव्हमेंट आहेत आपल्याकडे यावेळेला. आपली अनेट नेहल बेलगमवार, स्वाती आणि सुधीर बेलगमवारांची मुलगी, तिला is one of the speakers at this year's Alexa live event taking place on it took place on the 22nd of July. Her presenting the track of build conversational interfaces faster with Alexa conversations. So heartiest congratulations to Nehal Belgamwar, and there were 260 participants for this vocational webinar and she was selected in that. So heartiest congratulations to Nehal and the proud parents. Also Aditya Ingle and Aditya Jagdale enrolled virtual ROI program. आणि आपल्यापैकी आणखीन कोणालाही त्यामध्ये एनरोल करत असेल तर आपण आपल्या अनेट्सना त्याच्यासाठी एनकरेज करू शकता. आपली फंड रेझिंगची आपली आयडिया आहे की हॉटेल ॲडव्हर्टाइजमेंट की आपली प्रिया बेर्डे आणि अमर गवळी यांचं चखले या आपल्याला प्रायोजक आपल्याला लाभले. त्यांना धन्यवाद आणि त्यांचं अभिनंदन आहे. आता मी आपले रोटरियन संतोष जोशी, आपल्या यावर्षीच्या परंपरेप्रमाणे आपण आपल्या 2 मेंबर्सना त्यांच्या बिझनेसची आणि त्यांच्या बिझनेसच्या दृष्टीने त्यांचा जे काय वाटचाल चालते आणि त्यांचा जो आवाज आहे, त्यांचा व्हॉट इज देअर ओव्हरऑल हॉलिस्टिक व्ह्यू अबाउट देअर बिझनेस, तर ते आपल्याला सांगतील. तर आपले रोटरियन संतोष जोशी ह्या त्यांचा पोशाख बघा, पण ते ऍक्च्युली आणखीन बरंच कलंदर व्यक्तिमत्व आहे, तर ते आपल्याला त्यांच्या बिझनेस बद्दल सांगतील. रोटरियन संतोष, आणि ते आमचे क्लब मेंबरशिप डायरेक्टर पण आहेत. तर संतोष, यू कॅन कंटिन्यू.
नमस्कार. सगळ्यात प्रथम मी प्रेसिडेंट किरणचे आभार मानतो की किरणनी ह्या वर्षी हे जे रोटरी बिझनेस साठी एक एव्हेन्यू चालू केला आणि सगळ्या रोटरियन्स आपले जे क्लब मेंबर्स आहेत ते कुठला बिझनेस करतात. कधी कधी असं होतं की आपल्या बरोबरचा माणूस कुठला बिझनेस करतो हे आपल्याला माहिती नसतं, आणि रोटरीमध्ये रोटरी रेफरल नेटवर्क म्हणून एक फोरम आहे. त्या फोरमच्या आधारे आम्ही भरपूर बिझनेस केलेला आहे. माझ्या कंपनीने गेल्या 3 वर्षात 2 कोटीच्या वरती बिझनेस झालेला आहे माझा. तर त्या संदर्भात 30 किरणनी आमच्या क्लबमध्ये चालू केल्याबद्दल किरणचे मनापासून धन्यवाद. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. राहुल
हा घेतली
राहुल नेक्स्ट स्लाइड.
आली असेल ना.
तर माझ्या कंपनीचं नाव आहे डेटम एनर्जी सिस्टीम प्रायव्हेट लिमिटेड. आमचं बावधनला हेड ऑफिस आहे डेटम हाऊस म्हणून. तर ही कंपनी 2009 मध्ये स्थापन झालेली आहे. पुढची स्लाइड. हॅलो, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. तर आम्ही हॅव्हल्स इंडिया लिमिटेडचे ऑथराइज चॅनल पार्टनर आहोत. आमची कंपनी ही 2009 मध्ये स्थापन झालेली आहे. ISO 9001:2015 आम्ही आहोत. MNRE चे चॅनल पार्टनर आहोत. MNRE म्हणजे मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ न्यू अँड रिन्युएबल एनर्जी, याचे आम्ही चॅनल पार्टनर आहोत. नंतर मेडा म्हणून जी इकडची लोकल संस्था आहे जी आपल्याला सबसिडी देते इंडिव्हिज्युअल आणि सोसायटीज करतात, त्याचे आम्ही चॅनल पार्टनर आहोत. आम्ही साधारणतः 400च्या वरती प्रोजेक्ट ऑल ओव्हर महाराष्ट्र केलेले आहेत. आम्ही प्रोजेक्ट डिझायनिंग पासून EPC म्हणजे इंजिनिअरिंग, नंतर प्लॅनिंग आणि कमिशनिंग हे आम्ही सगळं करतो. प्रोजेक्ट मॅनेजमेंट करतो आणि प्रोजेक्ट कम्प्लीट केल्यानंतर ONM म्हणजे आफ्टर सेल्स सर्व्हिस जी असते ते सुद्धा आम्ही करतो. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. साधारणतः तुम्हाला आता सर्वांना कल्पना असेल की बऱ्याचशा सोसायटीज म्हणा, बरेचसे इंडिव्हिज्युअल म्हणा, बऱ्याचशा फॅक्टरीज म्हणा सोलर फोटोव्होल्टिक सेल्स करून स्वतःची एनर्जी जनरेट करतात. त्याचा एक थोडक्यात स्कीमॅटिक दिलेला आहे. तर सोलर पॅनल, सूर्याची किरण सोलर पॅनल वरती पडल्यानंतर तिथून DC करंट जनरेट केला जातो. तो DC करंट जनरेट झाल्यानंतर तो इन्व्हर्टर तर्फे AC मध्ये कन्वर्ट केला जातो. AC मधनं जे लोडला दिलं जातं, एक्सेस एनर्जी आहे ती MSEB, आता आपल्याकडे महाराष्ट्रात आहे म्हणून MSEB किंवा युटिलिटी ग्रीड जे आहे त्या ग्रीडला सप्लाय रिव्हर्स मध्ये केला जातो. तिकडे बाय डायरेक्शनल नेट मीटर येतो. तर हा बाय डायरेक्शनल नेट मीटर लोड ऍज वेल एज MSEB या दोघां ठिकाणी सप्लाय करत असतो. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. आता हे करताना तुम्ही एखादी म्हणजे कोणालाही उद्या सोलर करायचं असेल तर त्याच्या पाठी सोलर करताना आपण एक 25 वर्षाचा ऍसेट विकत घेत असतो. तर हे 25 वर्ष आपल्याला चालवायचं ह्या दृष्टीने आज आपण पैसे इन्व्हेस्ट करताना भले त्याचा ROI म्हणजे रिटर्न ऑन इन्व्हेस्टमेंट हे 3 वर्षाच्या आसपास आहे, 2.5 ते 3 वर्षामध्ये. पण एखादी सिस्टीम घेताना आपण ब्रँडेड किंवा चांगली किंवा लॉंग टर्म का घ्यावी आणि सोलर सिस्टीम मध्ये काय काय प्रॉब्लेम येऊ शकतात तर ही काही थोडक्यात कारणं दिलेली आहेत. तर ही टेक्निकल आहेत. तर माझ्या आता पुढचे नेक्स्ट स्लाइड घेऊ. त्याच्यासाठीच आम्ही हॅव्हल्स ही कंपनी निवडली होती. ही हॅव्हल्स ही लॉंग लास्टिंग कंपनी आहे. आता गेले जवळपास 50 वर्ष हॅव्हल्स मार्केटमध्ये आहे आणि नक्कीच पुढे 50 वर्ष हॅव्हल्स ही कंपनी मार्केटमध्ये राहील. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. आजपर्यंत आम्ही केलेले प्रोजेक्ट त्यातले क्लायंटेल आहेत सानपाडा रेल्वे स्टेशन जे नवी मुंबईत आहे. तिकडे आम्ही 1000 किलोवॅट म्हणजे त्याला 1 मेगावॉट असं म्हणतात. तर 1 मेगावॉट सानपाडा रेल्वे स्टेशनला गेलंय. आता ही युनिक लिंगर म्हणून एक स्वीडिश कंपनी आहे, ही पुण्याच्या जवळ आहे. आता रिसेंटलीच आता ह्या कोविडमध्ये आम्ही 600 किलोवॅट तिकडे आता एक प्रोजेक्ट केला. नंतर कटारिया पॉलिमर्स आहेत. फुजित्सू ही IT मधली कंपनी आहे. फुजित्सू बरेच लोक ओळखतात, तळवड्याला आहे. तिकडे 365 किलोवॅट केले आणि ह्या वर्षी आम्ही पुढे त्यांचं जवळपास एक 700 किलोवॅट अजून करणार आणि 1 मेगावॉट कपॅसिटीचं आम्ही काम करणार आहोत तिकडे. नंतर सोसायटीज मध्ये पुण्यातली सगळ्यात मोठी आता सोसायटी आहे रोहन कृतिका म्हणून. तर आतापर्यंत पुण्यातलं हायएस्ट इन्स्टॉलेशन हे माझ्या कंपनीने केले. ते जवळपास 301 किलोवॅटचं आम्ही इन्स्टॉलेशन केले. नॉर्मली सोसायटीज मधनं 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 असतं. आता इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टरमध्ये आम्ही हे सानपाडा रेल्वे स्टेशन दाखवलंय. पुढे केलं तरी चालेल, ठीक आहे. इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टरमध्ये सानपाडा रेल्वे स्टेशन आहे. नंतर चाकणला ॲक्युपॅक, हे आपले एक रोटरियनच आहेत ॲक्युपॅक वाले, त्यांच्या याच्यावर केलं. हा RRNच्या थ्रू मला एक बिझनेस मिळाला होता. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. नंतर IT सेक्टरमध्ये महिंद्रा अँड महिंद्रा यांचं IT सेंटर आहे कांदिवलीला. तर तिकडे महिंद्राची स्वतःची कंपनी आहे सोलर मधली, तरी आपण जे हॅवेल्स तर्फे त्यांना सोल्युशन दिलं होतं सोलर एज म्हणून, तर त्या सोलर एजचं त्यांना कन्सेप्ट आवडली आणि त्या सोलर एज मधनं त्यांनी एक पायलट प्रोजेक्ट केला होता 27.95 किलोवॅटचा. फुजित्सू मध्ये मी मगाशी म्हटलं त्याप्रमाणे एक 365 किलोवॅट आम्ही केलेलं आहे. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज.
संतोष जरा फास्ट प्लीज.
नेक्स्ट स्लाइड येत नाहीये. साधारण एक 4 वर्षापूर्वी मुंबईतलं सगळ्यात हायएस्ट इन्स्टॉलेशन होतं एक 200 किलोवॅटचं. ते एक ड्रीम्स म्हणून एक सोसायटी आहे भांडूपला, तिथे आम्ही केलं होतं. तर त्याचं हे पेपर कटिंग आहे. नंतर इथे वारजेला सुद्धा आम्ही पूर्वी एक केलं होतं सोसायटीमध्ये, त्या काळात ते मोठं होतं 60 किलोवॅट, तर त्याचं एक पेपर कटिंग आहे. ते मीडिया कव्हरेज त्यातनं मिळाले त्याचे फोटो आहेत. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. हॅलो, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. हा, आता रिसेंटली रोटरी क्लब ऑफ पुणे सहवास याच्यातर्फे आम्ही चिखलीमध्ये घरकुलमध्ये एक प्रोजेक्ट केलेला आहे. तर त्या प्रोजेक्टमध्ये आम्ही आता 5 बिल्डिंग करता केलेले आहेत. उरलेले आता 155 बिल्डिंग आम्ही करणार आहोत. आणि हे रेकग्निशन आहे गव्हर्नमेंटकडनं. आम्ही MNREचे चॅनल पार्टनर आहोत किंवा आम्ही गव्हर्नमेंटमध्ये जी काही कामं केलेत तर त्यांची कंपन्यांची आहेत. धन्यवाद. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच.
थँक्यू. सलील नाहीये. राहुल
सलील आला होता ना.
नेक्स्ट साइड.
सलील आहे मला वाटतं.
नाही त्याच्याकडे पॉवर कट आहे, त्याचा प्रॉब्लेम आहे तिकडे.
ओके,
नेक्स्ट आपलं डायरेक्टली आलायस का तू?
ठीक
ओके,
आहे.
सॉरी.
आपले नेक्स्ट रोटरियन सलील देशपांडे
प्लीज कंटिन्यू. सलील
बिझनेस बद्दल बोलतील. तर हे सलील कंटिन्यू प्लीज.
सलील प्लीज.
गुड इव्हनिंग. माझं बेसिकली आर्किटेक्चरल सर्व्हिसेस, इंटिरियर सर्व्हिसेस म्हणजे आर्किटेक्चरल अँड अदर टेक्निकल सर्व्हिसेस मी प्रोव्हाइड करतो. सलील देशपांडे आर्किटेक्ट अँड कन्सल्टंट्स या नावाने माझी फर्म आहे. त्याच्यामध्ये मी स्पेस प्लॅनिंग, कन्स्ट्रक्शन ड्रॉइंग्स, इंटिरियर डिझायनिंग अँड कॉन्ट्रॅक्टिंग, लँडस्केप डिझायनिंग, व्हॅल्युएशन ऑफ इन्मुव्हेबल प्रॉपर्टीज, प्रोजेक्ट मॅनेजमेंट असे अनेक सर्व्हिसेस मी प्रोव्हाइड करतो. Architecture, what I feel is it's not only a profession, but it is a process of continuous interactive discussions with the client. आणि हे झाल्यावरती मग आम्ही we can actually get into some kind of design which will suit the client's needs. ह्याच्यात मी आर्किटेक्चरल, सिव्हिल आर्किटेक्चरल सर्व्हिसेस देतो आणि इंटिरियर सर्व्हिसेस ह्याच्यात माझा 20 वर्षाचा अनुभव आहे. आणि प्रोजेक्ट मॅनेजमेंट, व्हॅल्युएशन लास्ट 5 years I'm doing it. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. लँडस्केप सर्व्हिसेस मी प्रोव्हाइड करतो. आपल्या सहवास ग्रुपचे राजूभाईंनी मला चान्स दिला होता. आय एम व्हेरी थँकफुल टू हिम. मी त्यांच्या इथे व्यंकटेश गॅलेक्सीमध्ये लँडस्केप डिझाईन दिलं होतं विच केम आउट व्हेरी गुड. माय सर्टन क्लायंट्स आर महिंद्रा अँड महिंद्रा, लवासा या लोकांबरोबर मी काम करतो. अँड इट्स अ रिक्वेस्ट टू ऑल टू कन्सिडर my services wherever required and recommendations for whom you feel they need my services. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thanks Salil and all the best तुला आणि संतोषला.
Thank you.
मी रोटरियन अजय मुटाटकर यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी आजच्या चीफ गेस्ट आपल्या ऍडव्होकेट रितू आगवेकर यांची ओळख करून द्यावी. बोला प्रेसिडेंट.
अजयजी एक सेकंड. आजच्या आपल्या मीटिंगच्या चीफ गेस्ट रितू आगवेकर ज्या कॉर्पोरेट लॉयर आहेत, तसा आजचा विषय हा आपल्या सर्वांच्या दृष्टीने म्हणजे बरेच जण आपले वेगवेगळ्या व्यवसायामध्ये आहेत. रिअल एस्टेट झालं, छोटे मोठे व्यवसाय झाले, उद्योग झाले, हॉटेल झाले. पण बऱ्याच लोकांना काही कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट एक्झिक्यूट केलेली असतात, त्याच्यासाठी कायदेशीर बाबींची प्रचंड गरज भासते. आणि खास त्याच्यासाठी आजचं सेशन आपले रोटरियन जे 21-22 प्रेसिडेंट आहेत यांच्यामुळेच आज आपण रितू आगवेकर यांना ऐकणार आहोत. मी अजयजींचं पण मनापासून अभिनंदन करतो, आभार व्यक्त करतो आणि रितूजी तुम्हालाही पुन्हा एकदा तुमचं स्वागत करतो. अजयजी प्लीज.
Good evening friends, all my Rotarian friends and their families. I know my personal friends and family members are also here and I request my friends and family members to join this great organization of Rotary that connects the world. Friends, one of my friend from Calcutta, he sent me a good message other day saying that Renaissance was there in Europe in 17th century, particularly in France. I know many friends here, they know what Renaissance is all about. It is all about art, music, literature, architecture. Friends, we are living in a very interesting time now. Now, even the pre-COVID-19 period or days seem to be a renaissance. Friends, people welcome change. People like change. People accept change. But nobody had imagined that one virus can change the world so much. एक मच्छर आदमी को क्या बना सकता है ये हम सभी को पता है, मगर एक वायरस दुनिया को क्या दिखा सकता है ये हम अब देख रहे हैं. Our personal lives are transformed. We are working from home, but I don't know how much we are at home. Our professional lives are devastated. Our emotional life, to a large extent, is definitely disturbed. Today we have with us Advocate Ritu Agwekar, and she will be speaking on COVID-19 and how it will be affecting real estate, commercial contracts, MSME sectors from legal perspective. Ritu has work experience of over 2 decades. The bandwidth of the work lies in real estate, general, corporate, contractual and commercial law, ranging from retail to corporate across all sectors. Her expertise lies in pre-post transaction in legal due diligence documents. So society redevelopment projects, commercial contracts in real estate, and very interestingly, very importantly, drafting of contractual documentations and corporate agreements like joint venture, collaboration agreement, non-disclosure, non-compete agreement, project management development, consultancy agreements, employer-employee agreements, vendor-supplier agreement, and so on and so forth. Her forte is solution-based balanced transaction closure for the clients. She is a retainer with BCP Bangalore for their POSH vertical. She is an honorary consulting advocate for Pune's very famous NGO, Gharonda, for inmates of senior citizen. Her entrepreneurial fleet includes, she is the co-founder of Leap Business Partner LLP for promoting collaboration. She is the founder of Women Power Within, enabling co-creation and promotion of women empowerment. She has won several awards and accolades. She has featured in many talk shows. She has appeared in many, she was panelist in many discussions. She has appeared in magazines. She was a Woman Achiever Award in International Women's Day 2017. And she was also nominee for the Nari Shakti Award 2018. She is a trainer. She is a pranic healer. She has been associated with many renowned law firms of India and currently practicing as an individual legal consultant based out of Pune. Friends, here we have a very multi-dimensional, versatile, and vibrant Ritu. I welcome Ritu and request you to take it over from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay Dada, as I fondly call him. In fact, the pleasure and honor is mine today being here and addressing such accomplished people in the forum. Rotary itself is such a decorated platform. So I think more than I being projected as something or someone out of the world, it's my privilege and honor to be addressing all of you here. So thanks for this opportunity, first of all. Very briefly, again, telling you the practice areas that Ritu Agvekar and Associates, can I just have the previous slide, please? Just to set the tone, right? Thank you so much. So my practice areas are real estate, general corporate, commercial, contractual, infrastructure, labor and compliance, and corporations and intellectual property rights. Yes, now we can move on to the next slide. Can we have the, yes. So basically we have been from the past 6 months experiencing something which none of us has actually predicted. We were not prepared for this, and hopefully in times to come, we'll be better equipped to handle these kind of situations. But having said this, the impact on the commercial sector, the real estate sector, the MSMEs, and for that matter, every sector has been so large, and it has been something which we all had not really thought about yesterday. On the backdrop of this particular COVID-19, I will be taking you through the impacts that it has had on the commercial contracts predominantly, the real estate sector and the MSMEs, because I was given to understand that majority of the members of this particular club are into MSMEs. So these topics are very elaborate and these are very exclusive and inclusive. I'll try to cover as much as I can, and I'll touch base only on those aspects which are absolutely important, and the rest of the things we can obviously take in the question answer sessions, right? So please, can I have the next slide? Right. The commercial contracts and the whole gamut of the contract is based on 2 basic terms. These terms are often spoken, and these are the terms like the quarantine and the medical jargons that we are understanding and listening to these days. The legal jargons, people are now understanding what force majeure is and what is the doctrine of frustration. We, in this entire presentation, which is restricted to the commercial contracts and real estate, will be revolving around these 2 topics, and all the case laws are based on this, right? Now, though they are very inclusive, the definitions are often overlapping. So at one pretext, in one kind of fact analysis, it may appear that the force majeure is applicable, but at the same time, it may not be, and it will only be doctrine of frustration or both of them. So they have a duality also of interpretation, and they can be standalone, also be applicable. So first, getting on to the first term, which we have been hearing these days, is the force majeure. Force majeure under section 32 of the Indian Contract Act of 1872. We'll have the next slide so that everybody can read also, because if I'm going too fast, it will be easier for everybody to understand that. Right. Thank you so much. The term force majeure, it is absolutely, in simple language, it is something which cannot be reasonably anticipated or controlled. Anything which is outside the control or beyond the reasonable control of the contracting parties is said to be force majeure. Now, this definition, as per section 32, is very inclusive, like I said. There are extreme terminologies brought down to the simplest of expressions, like the act of God, calamity, shortage of supply, and so on and so forth. The force majeure cause is not only act of God, is what this pandemic has shown us. Often the commercial contracts will have this term force majeure, the clause which is often copy-pasted, and it has been going on in multiple of the documents. But now, when we are going to look at the contracts, we have realized that the act of God per se standalone may not give us the blanket what you call leverage against in invoking this particular section, this particular clause. Now, why? Because an act of God is not covering what we essentially call a calamity, right? So these 2 terminologies will base the contract whether we can invoke the section 32 under the Indian Contract Act or not. Now we will understand the term of the doctrine of frustration, which is under section 56. Can we have the next slide, please? Now, doctrine of frustration, like I said, as against the act of God, which we understood under the force majeure, it is something which hampers or which prevents the promisor from executing the terms of the contract. Now, something which has rendered the contract impossible to perform is doctrine of frustration. So the purpose of the contract is frustrated, and that's the reason I'm not able to execute the terms of the contract, right? So as against section 32 of force majeure, doctrine of frustration talks about a possibility which may not essentially be a force majeure, a contract which is voidable or void, which is unlawful, which due to a certain situation is not in a position to be executed, will be covered under doctrine of frustration. We in the next part of this presentation will try and understand how these two sections have been playing actually the interpretation in a particular contract, and why a particular commercial contract may not have the executability or will not have the protection under force majeure or doctrine of frustration, or standalone doctrine of frustration and not force majeure, right? I will give you as many examples so that it is easier for all of us to understand. Can we have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. So like I said, that the scope of force majeure and the interpretation of that, the applicability, the duality, and the enforceability is something which is not apropos available or applicable to all the commercial contracts. Now, a particular commercial contract may get an enforceability under law under the clause of force majeure event, but a similar sounding kind of a business may not get that leverage. So it is a fact analysis which will vary from each contract, and the applicability of that will be based on that particular contract, right? Now, how is it different? Like, I'll try and give you an example here. For instance, there's a coffee shop, for instance, and it is housed in a mall. Okay, this is a typical problem which most of the setups in this kind of an arrangement are facing today. Now, what happens ideally, and what happened was that post the lockdown, the entire activity of this coffee shop came to a standstill. It is housed in a mall. Maybe a part of the mall has started seeing some activity, but the coffee shop is not able to do business for the simple reason that the lockdown guidelines does not really permit the operation of a restaurant in terms of how it should be, right? So in this kind of a situation, what will be applicable is not maybe force majeure, maybe a doctrine of frustration will be applicable. Now, when I get the enforceability, or I get to the management of the mall to give me a leverage against the payments that I have not made for the terms of, for the tenure which I have not been able to operate from that space, is a matter of interpretation of whether I am impacted by directly section 32 or I'm impacted by section 56 of the Contract Act, right? I'm sure that you will now be able to understand that both these sections may work together, they may work standalone, but a force majeure may not essentially work without section 56 and vice versa, right? So the enforceability is a matter of each and every contract. Can we have the next slide, please? Now, broadly speaking, the categories of contracts that we have seen in these times of lockdown, are categorized in 4 main categories. There are n number of contracts which we see day in and day out. So any agreement between the two parties will be a contract. But broadly speaking, the 4 categories of the contracts are commercial real estate, which we see as a lease agreements. The second would be the merger and acquisition agreements. Then we have the supply contracts, and then real estate. I think most of you here will be impacted by the third category of contracts, the supply contracts, and we will come to that, of course, eventually. Now, the first, which I just now mentioned to you about, was a commercial space, right? So I give a commercial space to a person who's operating into maybe ITES services, and the other is has a CCD maybe, okay? Now, in these two kind of things, I, as the landlord, first of all, what we have to understand is that it is absolutely impossible to say that the landlord will not get anything, right? That the entire thing should be forfeited for the term of the tenure of the lockdown. For the simple reason that the retail sector finds on 90 to 95% of their revenue from these kind of rental proceedings and revenues, and backwardly they are impacted because they are adjusting those against their lease rental discounting, right? So there is a reverse supply chain disruption if these kind of revenues are stopped. So you see the impact has been multifold. So the supply chain is something which becomes very important for analyzing the force majeure and the doctrine of frustration. So commercial real estate would be ideally these kind of examples that I gave you, where the premises have been given to operate maybe a coffee shop or any other business unit. And now the contracts are being revisited in terms of the force majeure clause. Now, ideally what happens is that, like I told you some time back, that all the commercial agreements have essentially the clause of force majeure. But having said that, prior to the 9/11, whatever happened in US, they had started incorporating, and we saw a lot of commercial contracts which had the terms like terrorist attacks and riots and all of that. Prior to that, it was a simple force majeure which was anticipated in terms of some supply disruptions, or at the most the act of God, which was fire or earthquake, right, or the floods. Now, slowly as you see that as we have evolved and as there has been a lot of cross-border transaction increase, and we have seen more of globalization and people investing in India, we saw that this particular clause also went a lot of changes in the entire understanding of the whole clause. Still, COVID-19 or a pandemic has never been a part of any of the clauses, for the simple reason we all have been shaken by what we are seeing right now, and none of us has had ever predicted this kind of a calamity having been stuck in our times, in our lifetime. So the word pandemic, of course, is not a part of the contractual agreements in the force majeure clause. But the act of God is not something which a pandemic would essentially include. So the contracts which only have act of God may not get the direct cover under the force majeure, but we can always have doctrine of frustration working along with that, right? The second is the M&A agreements, where we have seen a typical example would be the e-commerce industry. Now, to give you some example, during this lockdown, we see some kind of rise in the business or some steadiness in the business is the e-commerce sector, because obviously during the lockdown also there were certain essentials which were being delivered, the e-commerce was happening, and these are the sectors which had seen some business as compared to the other, in fact, comparing it to manufacturing and other essential supplies like pharmaceuticals and the other industries. Having said this, the M&A agreements were impacted in terms of the fact that the agreements which were done prior to the lockdown, let's say 22nd of March, when the first a day curfew was announced, and thereafter we got into the biggest lockdown, and thereafter smaller lockdowns. That was a time the contracts which were entered into at that point in time are seeing a lot of revisiting of clauses for the simple reasons that the projections in the contracts, the business applicability, the enforceability, the need of the demand, the supply side, all these parameters have now changed. Now, having said this, the particular contract under the M&A would be really impacted by these kind of things, and not alone force majeure clauses, right? So it is in the totality that an M&A agreement will see a complete changeover. So the terms of the agreement, the terms and conditions of payment, right from the transaction value, the tranches in which it will come, everything will change. The third category of the contracts is the supply chain, the supply contracts. Ideally, I will try to explain this with the real estate sector, because in this particular sector, what happens is that the supply of cement and steel keeps coming. So maybe it is not really demand-based, it is a project-based demand, right? So supplier agreements mostly are one-sided agreements, because it is the supplier who is going to be at larger loss in case of a disruption in the chain. And the buyer has to buy. So if suppose I place an order for steel and cement today, I have to take it and I cannot refuse the order, right? So mostly the supply contracts are supplier centric. They are more balanced towards the supplier for the simple reason that their demand on the demand side cannot be really foreseen. It is something which you cannot really calculate. So it is an ongoing demand as per the project. Now, in these cases, the impact of the COVID-19 is going to be higher as compared to the other contracts for the simple reason that, like I told you, that the demands are not really something which I can foresee. So my orders are not based on that. Now, with a disruption in this supply chain, the demand at my end, I face a backward kind of disruption. So there has been a very, I will like to very quickly quote, and I will not get into the details of the case, of course. This is a case of Halliburton versus Vedanta, which was the first case to have hit the courts of law when we got to the lockdown. It was in the month of March, and that is actually taken as a precedent, where the court actually ruled that the force majeure will not be applicable, and the bank guarantee issue, there are all standalone issues. So there are a lot of aspects which come into forebeing when it comes to contracts. The fourth category is the real estate category. Now, a very interesting sector, and interesting in terms of the fact that it is a sector which contributes largely to the GDP. First thing is that. An industry which is one of the oldest industries in India, and still it does not get qualified as an industry, right? So a sector which houses the maximum employment, not only on the site in terms of the workers, the construction workers, but also in terms of the dependent industries in the supply chain. So today, when we are talking about a total stoppage of work of real estate, we all cannot really imagine the kind of reverse disruption it has caused in the supply chains, right? And we have discussed about all the supply chains here, and real estate is one of the largest sectors which not only gives employment, it is also an industry on which multiple sectors are dependent. So the real estate contracts would be our agreements, the unit agreements, right, which we have entered into while booking our premises, whether it's a commercial unit or it is a residential unit. Now, ideally speaking, majority of us, I'm including myself as a part of all of you. Here, I will just make a distinction for a while. So suppose I book a flat and I am given a 30-page document. How many of us are really getting into reading these agreements? We don't read each and every clause. We sign it, we just see this is the amount of money we're going to give. These are the installments, and this is the square feet of area that I will be getting in return, right? It happens with most of us, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just that this pandemic has put us in a situation where we have to be extremely careful about what a contract and clauses like force majeure can also mean to us. Now, in these times, when we are rereading the contracts, force majeure is a compulsory clause in all the contracts for that matter. It is there invariably. Now, what we have to be really careful about reading is the terms like calamities, act of God, strike, disruption of supplies. Now, again, when we talk about these kind of agreements, they can be balanced more towards the person who's providing us those, right? Why we have to be careful is that if in case there is something which is beyond the control of both the parties, should I be the only person who suffers? Obviously not, right? So in that case, we have to be very careful about reading this particular clause. Now, the government of India in the NHA guidelines actually gave a certain amount of leverage to the builders under this clause for the possessions which were meant to be handed over in the month of March onwards. So March, they had first 3 months extension. Thereafter, it was increased to 6 months. So now total of 9 months extension of timelines have been granted to the builders under the RERA. So they have to go apply for it. Now, again, it is very important in all these circumstances to understand that nothing becomes automatically applicable to any of the parties. You have to apply for it. The RERA registrations have to be renewed in terms of the fact that, yes, I have been impacted. My possessions were to happen in the month of March, April, May. Now there have to be a process again to be followed. And that is how the documents and everything will be reflected on the RERA side also. So nothing comes automatically to any of the parties concerned here, whether it is the provider or the service taker, it is the demand or the supply side, right? Can we have the next slide, please?
Yes. Madam, can you make your video on?
The video?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it was not on, is it?
It was not on, yeah.
All right. Okay. Am I visible?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. I can see myself also. All right. Okay. So now, having gone through these categories of contracts and having really understood the concepts of force majeure and doctrine of frustration, we will understand that one size does not fit all. It happens, right? I mean, we all are different. That's how the contracts are different. Each contract will be read as per the fact, and the analysis will be done accordingly. So a force majeure clause is there. तो आहे माझ्या document मध्ये clause. म्हणून मला त्याच्या खाली काही privileges आहेत का? No. The agreement has to be read. It is a particular case, and each case will be different. So I am not going to make any payment to the person whose premises I am occupying, because I have not been able to do any business, is something which we will not be able to escape with simply because we are in occupation of a premises which doesn't belong to us, first thing. Our belongings are there. That means our business is still being conducted from there. And we in person being there is not something which we are paying for. We are paying for occupation of somebody else's premises. So it is payable. But the only thing is, and what I have been advising my clients over the period of these months, is that please revisit your contracts, have the terms of your contracts renewed, changed and modified to accommodate this kind of a condition. Preempt की आता पुढच्या किती महिन्यात तुम्हाला ह्या गोष्टीला फेस करायला लागणार आहे आणि what are you going to what returns are you going to get out of that. So based on all this analysis, revisit your existing contracts, change the definition of force majeure clause as well, try and accommodate these kind of things, change the lock-in period. Now forgo the, so I'm just giving you various examples because every industry is different. ITES, the requirement is different. A beauty parlor will have a totally different kind of, setup. They are just not being able to work from that particular space. Then we had, like I told you, there are restaurants, there are pubs, there are theaters. So each case will be different in this scenario. So one size will not really fit all. So where will be the differentiation drawn? It will be the local practices, the usage, the orders by these statutory bodies. Now, a very good example of this usage and orders by statutory bodies is that we have MHA guidelines and then we have the CMO guidelines, right? Because every state is experiencing this situation and the impact is very different in each state. So though we have the MHA guidelines, which are a broader purview, we will have to narrow it down to each state to suit the local practices, the local situation, and the orders which are given by our authority here, the CMO. Then the specific language of the contract, it is very important. Like I told you, only act of God is not going to help us. Then facts in relation to the pandemic affecting the parties. So ITES will have a different kind of impact. A parlor will have a different kind of impact. A restaurant will have a different kind of impact, right? So each case is going to be different. Now we will see that all of this will have a bearing on the analysis of the applicability of the clause of force majeure and the provisions of the contract. The next slide, please. All right, now these are the safeguards that I would generally tell people that you should have. And I will read it out because it is something which I have really worked on. So I want all of you to benefit from the exact wording of these, safeguards. So first thing is, please reassess and review the contract in which the force majeure clause exists and analyze the relevant factors and incidents which are mentioned to initiate the rule to excuse. So you cannot go to somebody and say that, I may be excused under the force majeure. No, you may not be. Because even if you were operating from home, you were working. So your salaries were being paid, like in IT, ITES and BPO. We have seen that the businesses are happening from the work from home model. Now, there are certain businesses which may not be able to work. So this is a very important part. Second is ensure all or any notification which is prescribed in the conditions of the contract. So we have to comply with those strictly, right? So the notice formalities. So even if I am demanding that I want some respite under force majeure or a doctrine of frustration, I have to follow the notice which is given in the contract. So I have to serve a notice, and it operates for both the parties. It is not only applicable to the licensee, it is applicable to the licensor as well. Now, mutually analyze the impact of the outbreak and then arrive at a consensus and arrive at a conclusion to that, so that none of the parties are really at loss. So it has to be a win-win situation for everybody, because none of us are coming out of this alive, I mean, so to say, that way. Now, initiate a chance to perform the contract in a possible alternative way. Like I just said, that there can be another way of looking at a contract. So possibly if today I am saying that this is a particular way where I can operate, I can always find another way, an alternative way, which may not be as impressive or, as profitable, but it is something which is taking care of the current situation so as to make the contract applicable and executable. Collect evidences to accord non-performance of the obligation to the sole force majeure event in the current scenario of the pandemic. So we have to collect that my business has been impacted directly. Like for instance, somebody who is into an ice cream parlor or a restaurant, he can directly collate that I just cannot operate. My restaurant is shut. I don't have the permission to really operate from home as well, because the social distancing norms are applicable, complete lockdown. So you have to gather the evidence, which actually shows that you're directly impacted, your business is directly impacted. I'm just giving you simple examples because then you can relate it to a bigger thing, obviously with regard to your own businesses. Like for instance, a gentleman just gave his presentation. He's an architect, I think Mr. Deshpande, if I'm not wrong. And he pointed out that he's into landscaping. Now, suppose he's only into landscaping. His business is really going to be impacted 100% during these times. So he can actually provide n number of examples, and he can cite examples how his business has been impacted. And therefore, if he's in occupation of a space, or suppose he is a provider of a service and there are delays, he can always base his argument on this and take the benefit of this doctrine of frustration as also, and force majeure also, right? Then keep a strict record of the various notifications, like I just told you, that there have to be, everything has to be supported by notifications and administrative, the administrative bodies have come out with. Like we had a notification in the month of May, which actually declared a calamity as a pandemic. So most of the agreements, we don't have pandemic as the word, we have calamity at the most. So the government of India came out with a notification in the month of May stating that a calamity has to be equivalent to a pandemic, right? So then you can get a respite under that particular term. All records with respect to unavoidable additional expenditure incurred must also be maintained. So if during those time, suppose you are operating the business from home and you are incurring extra costs in that, that account also has to be maintained, right? So these are the do's that you have to resort to during these times. Now, based on whatever businesses we all are into, we'll be able to really analyze and appropriately apply all of this generally to whatever we are doing. The next slide, please. The next slide, please. All right, so, okay, now this is something which is, I think, very dear to all of you here. And Ajay Dada has been very particular, and he has been reminding me that Ritu, please cover MSME as much as you can. Like I said, though it is for MSMEs, it is a very elaborate topic, right? The Act came in 2006 when we really recognized the need to legislate, to have a legislature for this particular industry, this particular section of enterprises. And the act is called the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act 2006. Now, each word I would always say in all my webinars and sessions that each word in legal jargon has got a meaning. It says development. So the development is focus. It is not a legislation just to govern the MSME. No, it is a legislation which focuses on the development of the MSME sector, right? So it is a beneficial legislation which aims to facilitate the promotion and development of micro, small and medium enterprises. Having said this, let's move on to the next slide. Which directly we will come to what benefits have the MSMEs got in view of the COVID-19. I should not be the first one, and I'm sure I'm not the first one who is talking about how badly impacted the MSME sector is, for the simple reason because of the disrupted supply chains. The COVID-19, all of us are sailing in the same boat. I will always say that the SME and the MSME sector is slightly, a step above that. The government has been right from the beginning, it has tried to actually provide for certain leverages. It has come up with certain policy decisions. It has come up with certain interpretations which now accommodates the MSME in a better manner. But at the backdrop of this, I'm sure that these are the measures which have to be multifold, and the efforts made by the government are not really sufficient. Sticking my webinar and my session strictly to the legal perspective of the MSME, the measures in view of COVID-19, the government of India, in order to ensure a speedy recovery of dues, has really prescribed a two-stage mechanism. One is comprising of conciliation and arbitration for settling the claims of micro and small enterprises. Now, as reference to Section 18, the legislation, though, like I told you, that it is a legislation, so you cannot deviate from the mechanism which is provided under Section 18. So it doesn't have an overriding impact, but under the COVID-19, the government has provided for, it has provided that from the point of view of a speedier conciliation and arbitration, you can take recourse to that, right? We will understand what exactly this means in the coming slides. The central government, via a notification of SO 2119E, it came in force very recently on 1st of July, which was issued in view of and accommodating the criteria for classifying the MSME. So you see that the definition of MSME changed, which also again I will be describing very elaborately in the next slide. Significant changes have been introduced in the registration procedure. Earlier, the registration of MSMEs was a plethora of applications, but there are certain things which are taken away right now in the present scenario, so as to just speed up and the ease of business, right? Because we are aiming at the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. So there is, with the intent of having a simple way of doing a business, there are certain registrations which have been given slightly diluted form. Then increasing the threshold to 1 crore under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 is the best respite that the MSME can see, because earlier it was 1 lakh. As against that, now it has been raised to 1 crore. So that kind of a threshold increase is something which is going to really take care of a lot of MSME sectors which have faced the brunt of, or which would be facing the brunt of defaults, right? Can we have the next slide? Yeah, so we can have the next slide. It is just talking about the key reforms to support the MSME. We can have the next slide. Now, the revised definition of MSME, again, I will read it out as it is, because it is very important for all of us to really understand what the revised definition of MSME now is in view of the announcements made by the Government of India. The eligibility criteria and the threshold of an MSME has been really revised. It has become more inclusive, right? So the term supplier and an enterprise under the MSME has become broader. An enterprise qualifies as a micro, small, or a medium enterprise depending upon the amount of investment made with respect to plant and machinery in case it undertakes manufacturing, or equipment in case it provides services, right? So in addition to this existing investment conditionality, a new criteria for turnover has been introduced. Further, the prescribed investment threshold for being included within the definition of MSME has also been increased. Additionally, the distinction between manufacturing and service industries has also been done away with. So there is no distinction between these two. Now, anything which forms under that criteria of the increased investment is an MSME. So there is no categorization or there is no distinction as to manufacturing and service industries. So that's the biggest first-hand reform that has been suggested by and implemented by the GOI. We can have the next slide, please. Now here is a comparative study of what we had in the previous categorization. I'll quickly run through this because I know we are pressing against time. So category was manufacturing. So investment towards plant and machinery. Services was investment in equipment. Then we had the new category I will come to later. Now in case of micro, it was up to 15 lakhs earlier. As against that, and services was 10 lakhs. In the new categorization, it has come to less than 1 crore when it comes to capital and investment, both plant, machinery and equipment, and the turnover less than 5 crores, right? For the micro scale industry. Then we come down to the small scale industry, where in the previous category, the manufacturing had investment towards plant and machinery was above 25 lakhs and up to 5 CR. And the services, on the services side, it was above 10 lakhs and up to 1 crore. Now in the new definition, in the new categorization, it has come to less than 10 crores and less than 50 crores, right? So the definitions have really changed now for the micro, small and medium. Now medium was for the plant and machinery earlier, in the earlier category, it was above rupees 5 crores and up to 10 crores. For the services, the investment in equipment was above 2 crores and up to 10 crores. In the new categorization, it has become less than 50 crores and less than 250 crores. So now you can see that the bandwidth of MSME and the definition of MSME has really gone up so much, right? We can move on to the next slide. Now, measures relating to insolvency and bankruptcy code. Now, all of us know that there will be n number of defaults. There is a cash crunch, there is no supply, there is maybe there are disrupted supply chains. And we are facing a situation where, I mean, when I say we, I am so India, which was as early as we had March was the first lockdown. So if you all remember, 22nd of March was the first so-called Janata curfew, and then 23rd March onwards, we went into the biggest lockdown, which I think ended up to, I mean, the end of March and then extended to April also thereafter. The government of India on 24th March 2020, that was the first lockdown. It increased the minimum threshold for default from 1 lakh to 1 crore. So for anybody who wanted to have a respite under the IBC, right, had to be defaulting. I mean, the party who wanted to go against somebody should have defaulted up to the limit of 1 crore. So as against 1 lakh, which it was earlier. So obviously this amendment was a foreseen and a very foresighted effort on the part of our government to have anticipated this in the month of March, when even we were actually not really sure how long this entire thing will go on. So that was the first thing. Then the government of India later on 5th of June 2020 introduced further changes to the IBC to prevent corporate debtors from being dragged into the insolvency resolutions. This was the second which was done in the month of June. Then additionally, the scheme mentions that a special insolvency resolution regime is also being considered by the government for MSMEs under the IBC. Now, this is something which is still underway, but hopefully this also should work. Can we have the next slide, please? Now, this is another thing which I'm sure that this is something which most of the MSMEs, I mean, people who are in MSMEs must have felt this also, that the MSME Act provides for a 45-day time frame for the payments to be made. Now, that has been taken away. So what it has ideally done is that it has received the representations from the stakeholders stating that, you know, the government-owned companies or the public sector undertakings, if they have not made payment to the MSMEs, obviously backwardly, the 45 days of the limit has to be first borne by the PSUs for the MSMEs to make those payments, right? So in response to that, the government has come out with directions issued by the Cabinet Secretary, the Expenditure Secretary and the Secretary of MSME to all presentation also, and I will be able to help you with this. We can move on to the next slide. Labor compliances. Now, all the sectors, we can move on to the next slide. Now, there is a list of the comprehensive coverage of labor laws. All of us, regardless of the industry that we are a part of, whether it is an SME or it is an MSME, it is a corporate sector, it is real estate, whatever sector it is, there is and there has to be a very comprehensive coverage of labor laws. Now, this is a list of labor laws compliance where it has to be stringently audited and enforced and executed, because the government is coming very heavy on the labor compliance part. And any failure to adhere to those, the government is coming very strongly as far as the penalties are concerned. So the penalties are, I mean, of course, all these acts I will not be able to take and explain, but all of these acts are absolutely essential based on the kind of industry that you operate into, whether it is a factory setup, whether it is the applicability of Factory Act is there, or it is only contract labor. So all these factors will depend upon the kind of business that you are into and the kind of enterprise that you are running, whether it is a manufacturing unit or otherwise. Now, to do away with 4 of the very important acts which are a part of this labor laws, the government came up with the Code of Wages in 2019. Can we have the next slide? Over and above this, I'm talking about the Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India notified the Code of Wages, the Code on Wages 2019 on August of 8, 2019, which sought to amend and consolidate the laws relating to wages and bonus and matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. And it is particularly relating to 4 acts. The 4 acts are Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act, the Payment of Bonus Act, and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976. Now, this is the code which came into being, which was notified in 2019 on 8th of August 2019, which will take care of these 4 acts in totality, and the code has been drawn in that. So people have to adhere to that. When I say people, it is the enterprise that I'm talking about, the organization in question. We can move on to the next slide, please. All right, so we have reached a conclusion, which I feel that there are many aspects which we could not actually cover in this, but I have tried. And after the conclusion, I will quickly go through a couple of sections under MSME, which are very important and which we all must know. So the change in the definition of MSME definitely has been a very welcoming and significant change which was done by our government, because it has really brought a lot of organizations and enterprises under the ambit of the Act, the legislature of 2006. That means that they will be able to avail the benefits of the Act. That's the first thing that we all look at, right? So that is a welcome move. Now, a couple of sections which I will just mention, which are not a part of this, but I think they're important from the point of view of the current scenario. This is section 8, which makes, which states, and there have been rulings as late as February 2020, where the courts have actually upheld that a registration of an enterprise is not mandatorily required under section 8. So the memorandum is not an essential prerequisite, okay, to be recognized as an MSME. So even if that registration is not done, you will still be a supplier, you will still be under the ambit of MSME. The court's view in that was that it was merely to be able for the authorities to recognize you, or you to be able to avail the privileges under the Act, and not otherwise. So registration under section 8 is not going to make you eligible for be called as an MSME. So that's an important thing. Second thing is about we are talking about section 18. So section 18 talks about the mechanism under which you can go to the court of law, which has to be strictly followed, and arbitration cannot and it cannot be overruled, or the contracts between the parties cannot override the impact of the legislation. So that is very important thing, right? Okay, so these are the 2 sections which you must remember, and they're very important. There are other sections as well, and there are a lot of cases which have been upheld and decided by the court as recent as in the month of June 2020. So that's about the whole presentation which we had today. I am sure that, and I hope that I've been able to really cover a lot of aspects in this. Now, before I describe about and I tell about whatever other things I do, of course, Ajay Dada has been kind enough to really briefly tell you about my other entrepreneurial fleets. This Kairos Business Partners LLP is something which we started in the year 2017. And this forum is called LEAP, which means Leading Entrepreneurs and Professionals. And I'm a co-founder with that. Primarily, of course, the intent when we came together was to network and generate business opportunities like any other business networking group. But as we grew, and in 2020, we came up with a very good idea about collaborating and getting into a business collaborative and co-creation platform. So Kairos Business LLP, Business Partners LLP is exactly that. And we are a bunch of professionals and business owners, and we come with our own expertise. So anybody who wants more details about that, please feel free to contact me after this presentation also. And Women Power Within is something which is very close to my heart. And Ajay Dada, I stand you to a slight correction. It is not something for women empowerment, because I always feel that women are always empowered. It is just that we have to execute our power which is there within us. So we all are, I'm sure the ants who are witnessing this today, and I can see Vaini also, and Vaini is giving me a very big smile, and she agrees with this, that we all are already empowered. It's just that we need to have our ideas clear, and we should focus on what we want in life. So Women Power Within is a platform where we enable and we promote co-creation and women economic empowerment. So we do a lot of mentoring for the startpreneurs. We give them a launch pad for their new businesses. And that's what, in a nutshell, Women Power Within is about. I'm also a pranic healer. Now, that's not something which I do as my business. It's just that, for my own solace and my own comfort, there are certain things which a person should do, and pranic healing happened to me. So I do that as well. I'm a trainer. I'm a lead by example trainer. So whatever my life and my experience of 23 years has taught me is something which I try to share with everybody. And if I always feel that if I can do it, others can also. So that's the part of the training aspect of this. That's it. And thank you so much for this patient listening. I know law is a very dry subject, but you all have been really kind. Thank you so much for your cooperation, and thank you for having me here. We are open to questions if you all have any.
Thank you, Rituji. It's a very nice session.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rituji, and for everybody's
कोणाला काही विचारायचं असेल तर
for everybody's information, Rituji's email ID and mobile number is on the screen. It can be noted by everybody, and they can contact after this session or whenever with the mutual consent time, because so that's the basic requirement. So you can send a mail and take the time appointment as such. If anybody has question, Prakash, please. Prakash Paturdam.
Can we get this presentation?
Yeah, you can.
Exactly, I was going to ask the same question.
I will send it.
Yes, you can.
For our Rotarians, I will send it. And who are the guests? Then please contact me. I will wrote my number over here, or you can contact Mr. Kiran Ingale. He will send it to you.
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
May I ask?
Sure.
Vicharu ka?
Yeah, please.
Okay. It's a great presentation, Advocate Rituji.
Thank you so much.
This is a very vast subject, and you have given us a brief idea, but it's great. Yes, thank you. I have one quick question related to real estate sector.
Yes.
Now, considering this pandemic situation, there are a lot of internal changes that happened in this real estate sector, where this renting of these immovable property are reshuffled,
Right.
or reorganized.
Yes.
There are so many things have happened that 4 or 5 months people are not working, so the rent may reduce or to be paid in few months or in latter stage. There are some oral contracts between the both the parties, where tenant
Yes.
and landlord has also agreed about.
Hmm.
Now the question arises, if a virtual situation, if we take, there is a rent of 1 lakh rupees per month, and now 4-5 months he couldn't honor this rent. So
Right.
now both the parties are agreed about that he will pay 50%
Hmm.
of the rent up
Yeah.
till March, and the balance will be after March.
Hmm.
So there is a contract, there is a live and license agreement where 1 lakh rupees is paid, and there is a contract. In the contract, we have an interest section where if the rent is not paid within so and so date, interest would be applicable.
Right.
Now here both the parties agreed about the postponement of rent.
Right.
Now my question arises whether we should make an addendum to the original contract, or if both the parties have agreed upon one email, if the tenant may say ki this is a situation, kindly waive off the interest and the defer payment allowed. So if this mail has accepted and there is a mutual understanding in a mail written section, so if
Whether that should be
litigation have
sufficient.
happened in future, 50% or somehow that tenant couldn't pay, and now the landlord has to recover that payment. So this email can be suitable, or it can be tenable in the litigation.
See, a very good question, in fact, and we are seeing a lot of matters like this. Like I told you that in these 3 months, the only contract revisiting that I've been doing is majority of these kind of terms and, agreements. Now, an evidence from the point of view of leading an evidence, of course, an email is sufficient when there is an acknowledgement, because anything in writing becomes an offer and acceptance, becomes a contract, right? And if it is acted upon. So there are the 3 main ingredients of a contract. So if it is there in the writing, it is fine. But from the point of view of the change terms and how much changes are you doing to the particular contract is extremely important. So what I have been doing is I have advising them on creating a new document, which will give reference of this particular pandemic, refer to those particular clauses. It need not be registered because a signed document is also fine, because there are no major deviations. It's only relating to this particular clause and the terms of payment which are attached to this, right? Now, typically your kind of a query will have complexity. Now, you are talking about a normal license or licensee of a residential premises. I am actually making it a macro issue. And
No, I'm talking about commercial only.
Commercial also, from that point of view also, if suppose there is a lock-in period, suppose it's a 3 years contract. It is a leave and license agreement for 3 years. I'm talking about Article 36. म्हणजे आपण 36A खालचं leave and license बघूया commercialचं. आणि त्याच्यात lock-in 1 वर्षाचं दिलं असेल, तर only an email will not be able to really do justice to the amount of escalation the next month, the next year, and all of these terms, because all these terms are not going to be changed and impacted. म्हणजे पहिला प्रश्न आला की तुम्ही आज existing जे दिलं नाहीये त्याच्यानंतर तुम्ही lock-in मध्ये जर का premises सोडले तर तुम्ही किती मला आज देऊ शकताय किंवा देत नाही आहात. आणि the third issue is की पुढच्या वर्षीपासून तुम्हाला otherwise if everything was fine and you had continued, तुम्हाला एवढं escalation बसणार होतं जे तुम्ही देऊ शकणार आहात का नाही शकणार आहात हे आपण आज सांगू शकत नाही. So it is always better that we do an agreement and we record all these terms via a separate agreement to make it more clear. From the point of view of evidentiary value in the court of law, an email is fine.
Thank you.
I have one question. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please. My screen has gone. I don't know why. I'm not able to see anybody.
Oh, can you hear?
Nonetheless, I can hear you. So
okay,
it's fine.
Great.
Yeah.
So thanks for this presentation. It was really good.
Thank you so
just
much.
wanted to check regarding the lock-in period, because what is happening is there is a live and license contract and it has also a lock-in period.
Right.
And if somebody is not paying the rent now, or saying that I will vacate because I'm not able to pay rent, what will happen to the lock-in period? He will have to pay for those 3 months, 3 years of locking or something like that?
See, as per the contract, he has to. But the realistic picture is that उसके पास आज पैसा ही नहीं है, तो वो कहाँ से देगा? वो आज license fee भी नहीं दे पा रहा है, तो lock-in period. Suppose Abhi ki situation mein, you know, there are two categories of people. Those people who are continuing. When I say people, please understand it in terms of individuals also and organizations also, right? So I'll not make the distinction in that. So suppose somebody opts to walk out right now, that we are not able to afford your space. It's been 6 months, there has been no business. What I will do is I'll pay you 50% and I walk out. So I am not honoring the lock-in period. First thing is that. Because if my lock-in period was to end in December, I'm walking out right now. But as per the terms of the contract, I was supposed to pay for the entire lock-in period if I leave before lock-in period. But I am not able to pay the license fee. If I had the money, I would have waited for the entire lock-in period, right? So now this is from the licensee's point of view. From the licenser's point of view, what we are trying to achieve there is to trying to reach a consensus where we say that you pay the 50% which you are trying to pay. Now these are just, see, like I told you, that every contract and every party to each contract will have a different view. But it has to be a win-win situation, and you have to see that none of the parties actually get disturbed in this, because it is a situation which nobody had anticipated. Okay, so in certain, you will not believe that there are certain contracts, there are certain agreements which don't have force majeure at all. There is no force majeure. And leave aside ki kashamule, there is no force majeure. So we have tried to arrive at a consensus there also, because litigation is always an option. The point is whether litigation is really going to fetch you the kind of respite that you want today. Right? So against your recovery of 1 lakh, if you are landing up paying 10 lakhs in the court, you have to arrive at a consensus there. So it has to be a more preempt. It has to be something which you can preempt and then conclude. So maybe you forgo this lock-in period amount right now and you adjust it in the future license fees. Right? You increase the lock-in period another 6 months. So December you can always think of increasing it to next year, another 6 months or 3 months, and try and adjust this as a deferred payment, which will keep coming to you in regular intervals against the license fee.
Yeah, I mean,
there are various types.
If you are getting moratorium from the bank, we can always give a moratorium period to the tenant, but then tenant is little more stubborn and saying that you waive off, don't talk about
moratorium. that blanket respite is not available to them. So you have law on your side, and we have handled these kind of matters also, because obviously in between there were CMO guidelines that it should not be demanded, but there was no waiver as such. So see, that's exactly what I'm saying, that the local notifications and guidelines have to be read in the larger perspective, right? So you cannot isolate things. So there cannot be a waiver completely. You can always accommodate. So complete 100% waiver is not available. So you please be rest assured, and there is something that you can really work out in this.
And one more small question, which if this kind of thing goes to the court, how long this kind of cases takes? That is the biggest worry for anybody, for that matter.
If you ask me, I would discourage people from going in for litigation, and that's exactly what I make very clear in all my presentations and when clients come to me for a consultation. So first thing I tell them is that please weigh your options and weigh the amount of money that you will spend on that. If your rewards from the court of law are going to be more than what you are facing right now, please go ahead. Yeah, I have 100% faith in the judiciary, nothing about against that. But in the current situation, when a normal working is not getting us the money that we really deserve, is it really a good option or choice to go to the court of law, is something that I will leave to you and your discretion. I cannot make an opinion on this, please. Have faith in the judiciary is what I can tell you, for sure. Yeah. There is, of course, you can go to the court. Those gates are always open for all of us, but you have to weigh your options. You have to weigh your options in that.
Thank you.
Anybody else has a question? If not, I will ask our advocate Jitendra Patel to give vote of thanks.
नमस्कार. आजचा विषय COVID-19 impact on commercial contract, real estate and MSME and its legal perspective. From common man's point of view, मुळात कायदा, agreement मधले terms and condition आणि त्याचं interpretation हे फार क्लिष्ट आणि ड्राय विषय असतो. परंतु आज आपल्या लाभलेल्या वक्त्या ऍडव्होकेट रितू आगवेकर यांनी हा विषय अतिशय सोपा करून आपल्याकडे प्रभावीपणे मांडला. ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ रोटरी क्लब ऑफ पुणे सहवास, आय एक्सटेंड माय सिन्सिअर थँक्स टू ऍडव्होकेट रितू आगवेकर फॉर हर इफेक्टिव्ह अँड इम्प्रेसिव्ह प्रेझेंटेशन. असं म्हणतात की शहाण्या माणसाने कोर्टाची पायरी चढू नये, परंतु आयुष्यात काही वेळेला असे प्रसंग येतात की तुम्हाला इच्छा असो किंवा नसतो कोर्टात जावे लागते. अशा वेळी आपल्या व्यवहाराच्या अनुषंगाने आपण काही कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट केलेले असतील, कमर्शियल अग्रीमेंट केलेले असतील, तर त्याचं इंटरप्रिटेशन कसं करावं, ते प्रभावीपणे कसं मांडावं, या लेक्चरच्या आजच्या अनुषंगाने त्याची पूर्वतयारी किंवा रिहर्सल झालेली आहे असं मी म्हटलं तर अतिशयोक्ती होणार नाही. मी पुनश्च एकदा ऍडव्होकेट रितू आगवेकर यांचे आभार मानतो. तसेच या कार्यक्रमाला माझे रोटरियन मित्र, त्यांचे गेस्ट, नातेवाईक अँड एनएट्स यांनी उपस्थिती लावली आणि कार्यक्रमाला शोभा वाढवली, त्याबद्दल त्या सर्वांचे आभार. थँक्यू.
थँक्यू जितूभाई. थँक्यू ऋतुजी.
I would just like to add one thing here, if I am permitted to. मी नेहमी सांगते की we all need a lawyer yesterday. We don't need a lawyer in future. We need a lawyer yesterday. And this pandemic has shown all of us how important a lawyer in your life is. You know, a simple sounding MOU, a simple sounding contract cannot be a copy-paste document. And each word, when we started with this presentation also, that legal jargon has to be understood and interpreted in its real sense. You know, every word has got its own weightage and meaning in the court of law. So we all need a lawyer yesterday. आणि हे सगळं आपण प्लीज डोक्यात ठेवूया. आणि यापुढे लॉयर्सला खरंच म्हणजे त्यांच्या म्हणजे कोर्टाची पायरी नाहीच चढू, पण आपले अग्रीमेंट्स तेवढे चांगले करावे, सो दॅट वी मे नॉट हॅव टू रिअली गो टू द कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ. थँक्यू सो मच. थँक्यू सो मच.
थँक्यू ऋतुजी.
लॉयरला त्याचे योग्य पैसे द्यावे.
करेक्ट.
बिकॉज यू ऑलवेज यस्टरडे ऑलवेज कधी काउंट होत नाही. जेव्हा फ्युचर डेट आली की मग यस्टरडे लक्षात येतो की तो किती महत्वाचा आहे.
आणि then you'll end up paying much more than what you would have paid yesterday.
Yes.
Right? So it's always better to hire a lawyer yesterday.
Yeah.
True. Yes.
Cost of planning is important, but maintenance cost, damage cost is more.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Rituji. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. थँक्यू.
आपण मीटिंग ऍडजन करूयात म्हणजे बोलता येईल.
हो.
मीटिंग इज ऍडजन.